And I think you become more okay with standing out and more okay with being noticed as well. I think like from being such a like deeply self-conscious teenager with like such low self-worth to then being in a situation where actually like I'm getting photographed like I'm Princess Di or something, like it's whoa, okay, this level of attention is insane. Then now, like years later, I always notice like after living in New Zealand where there's a very open culture, and Australia as well, like everyone, it's normal to chat to each other.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today we have Verity, a solo travel life coach who empowers women to discover themselves through travel. Her motto is transform through travel,
Yeah,
very aligned with travel through trauma. And we
100%.
have such similar missions. We've connected in the past, and I feel like there was immediate synergy in how we see the world. And it's rare to find other individuals, especially other women, who have been able to utilize travel as a healing modality. So I'm very, very excited to have you here today and be able to share your story with others and help inspire other people, especially other women, to take those steps to discover themselves in that way.
Likewise, Ashraf. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me
Sure.
on.
I would love to get to know you as an individual more deeply. What were some of your self-limiting beliefs, your um, upbringing, your relationship with yourself and your family as you were growing up that led you to become the person you are today?
That's a gorgeous question to start with. For me, I think I've had a lot of time to reflect over the last sort of 12 years, right? Like I started solo traveling when I was 18 and I'm 31 now, and I can't believe the difference in the person I am now compared to then. And I think that's what's inspired me so much to help other women achieve that. Like, obviously, you're going to grow up over a decade. There's no question of that. But my sense of self and my comfort in myself and my happiness in who I am, but also really knowing who I am and what I want to bring to the world, I think is so much more richer because of my travel experiences. And that's why I really stick to that motto of like transforming through travel. Most people, I think, have this, when people used to laugh when you'd be like, yeah, you're going to go and travel and find yourself. Like we kind of used to like scoff at that a little bit. And I think that's such a shame because it devalues that deep personal growth that really happens naturally. And I mean, you can read all the books and listen to podcasts and meditate and all the rest of it. There's so many different ways to grow as a person and to work on yourself. I just think travel is like, it's like personal growth on steroids, like you really just throw yourself in the deep end and figure out, okay, this is who I am out of my home comforts, out in a new environment. And you just tap into this deeper connection to yourself and build a much better relationship with yourself, which I just think is invaluable. And growing up,
I
I didn't
couldn't
have a
agree
good
more.
relationship with myself. So good. Well, yeah, of course. Like, I think we all have a very fixed idea of who we are. And especially like as a teenager, I mean, I have a lovely family. I've been absolutely blessed to have gorgeous friends who love me and support me. And in so many ways, I am completely blessed with a very secure base from which to spring from. Like my mum calls me her boomerang baby, which I love. And I think a big part of feeling able to go off and do that was because it was coming from a place of safety and always having that sense of home. But what I didn't have growing up was self-belief. I had a very I was growing up I grew up in the 90s, so really quite misogynistic culture. Body positivity was not a thing. We all were idolizing like the likes of like Paris Hilton and people like that as young women and being like, okay, that's what beauty is. And now looking back, it's horrific to see what we were kind of subjected to as young women growing up, especially because I was a very overweight teenager and that played such a deep role in my lack of confidence in myself. I had really low self-worth, low self-esteem, and I was constantly comparing myself to every other girl in my life and every other woman and being like, how is she so beautiful? How is she so confident? How is she so sure of herself? And it was one of the first experiences I really remember from my first trip to Peru. I was about 18. And funnily enough, a lot of US backpackers were like, your mom let you come here? Like, was just so shocked that I was there, like by myself and just like, yeah, I can do this. But I remember walking into a hostel bar and just looking around at like all these like cool travel babes who were just, and like, to me, they just felt, they seemed so at ease in themselves and so confident and sure of themselves. And I just felt a million miles away from that. But then 4 months later, I went home, my own version of that in some way.
I would love to understand, like, what was your thought process to actually initiate that first solo trip? Like, was it
Mm.
somebody nudging you to do it? Did you discover it on your own? Were you scared? Like, what led you into that first trip?
Oh my gosh, so terrified. It was unreal. But I think looking back, it kind of came from like incredibly strong limiting beliefs of, okay, I'm never going to be I'm not going to be beautiful. I'm not going to be that kind of girl. I'm not going to be the kind of girl that gets with the boys because that's just not me. That wasn't my experience growing up. And so it was almost this like, right, well, if I can't do those things, I'm going to go and be this cool traveler girl and I'm going to have great stories to tell and people will like me because I'm interesting, which just
Where did
makes
you
me
discover
so
that though?
sad for 17-year-old me that it was, I don't know, it was like this this niggling feeling of just, I felt like travel was the key to unlocking this better version of myself. And it totally was. And I stand by that. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping other women to do that because it's not about like getting out. It's not just about getting out of your comfort zone and being in a new environment. It's meeting yourself and being confronted with the parts that you like and the parts that you don't, and having the opportunity to basically be whoever you want to be because nobody knows you. You could be a
Exactly.
pathological liar and like reinvent a new identity at every single hostel. No one's going to know. And I think just having that anonymity and that freedom was so liberating because when you're a teenager and a young adult, you're constantly measuring yourself by other people around you and not wanting to stand out. And especially from my own belief system, which was just, I'm not enough as I am. So I need to go and find a better version of her. That was
Absolutely.
the
I
thought
couldn't agree more
process.
about being anonymous when you're traveling because, like you said, nobody knows you. So why not try to become the version of yourself that you want to become while you're abroad? You don't have to have your history carried with you. You don't have to explain yourself to anybody. You can just allow
Mm.
yourself to unfold naturally and just discover what that's going to look like. And I would love to know too, what were your childhood experiences that led you to believe that travel would be a modality that you could lean on? Did your family travel a lot with you? Did you get to go international quite a bit? Or was this something maybe you saw on TV or you read in a book?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to travel lots with my mum and dad, and we went on such a variety of holidays from like loads of camping trips in the UK and very like back to basics. But then Europe's on the doorstep, right? So yeah, I got to go to Italy and Spain and France and the US as well. And I think it just made me see that there are lots of different ways of doing life, and we get stuck in the towns and the cities that we grow up in, and we get presented with these social norms and just think, well, this is just life. And I remember when I've now spent like, oh, I spent 70% of my 20s outside of the UK, living in places like Australia and New Zealand and Mexico and Bali. And I love that in all of those places you see different ways of doing life and they're all of value. And I think that's really important because I think we get kind of pigeonholed into this is what success looks like, this is what life looks like. And as a young, like I went to a very competitive all girls school. It was a grammar school. So, you know, you didn't pay to go, but you had to be like really smart and to get in. And the trajectory was if you don't want to be a doctor or a lawyer or a vet and you don't want to go to Oxford or Cambridge, then basically like, you know, you're not there. And so there was a lot of pressure to do well at school and I did. And I went on to study social psychology at university and graduated with a first. And what I realized is what I loved learning about how other people interacted with each other because of how they felt in themselves, which is what led me to become a life coach and go to Bali and get trained when I just before I turned 30. And
So cool.
honestly, that training, that set me up to really see how much I was holding myself back just from the stories I was telling myself that aren't even
Mm.
true, and that we just take them to be true.
Man, that's so cool that you were able to actually find a resource like that to harness all your lessons into something so productive. Was there specific destinations or cultures that had a very profound impact on your healing, especially of your own self-reflection, and or was it like just the culmination of all the trips? Like what stood out to you in your journey of traveling solo?
I think that's a great question. I think the first time you go away, I went to Peru and Bolivia for 4 months, and I traveled with a friend for part of it, and then I went and worked in a shanty town, like building a school with this charity. And it was that realization of like what poverty really is and how easy life in the UK had been for myself and for everybody in my social bubble. I remember thinking, like, seeing these kids playing with this raggedy old mattress, having the time of their lives, like doing cartwheels and backflips and just chasing each other around. And they were so happy. And then, a few months later, I was babysitting for a local family and them having to enforce a screen ban. So, one of them had misbehaved and it was like, right, well, no tablet, no phone, no TV, no this. And I was just like, oh my goodness, that's such a like contrast that you can't really conceive of until you are faced with it. So I think that definitely had a very profound impact on just my sense of gratitude. I think that's one of the best gifts traveling can give you, is that sense of perspective and gratitude that just, do you know what? Like, life's actually not so bad. As long as I've got a roof over my head, people who care about me, a support system, food in my belly, water to drink, like, you really do get confronted with just how lucky we have it. And I think that is a very necessary learning that more people need, because when I see people like complaining and moaning about things, like, I don't know, it's hard to kind of quantify. Well, yeah, it's hard to
Yeah,
accept sometimes.
100%. There's nothing more irritating than somebody living in their victimhood about what their lives are like, and without understanding that even if you are extremely poor in the Western world, or you don't have the level of like degrees and education and beauty maybe that your peers do, when you travel abroad, you really get a sense of how the majority of the world live, and that we are extremely
Mm,
privileged to even have the option to go abroad. And when we come back home, we can realize just how many things we have at our disposal, that we are no longer allowing ourselves to live in victimhood over what might have happened
mm,
to us. We're going to reclaim our story and do something with it, because we know that we have now all the things available to us to make our lives happen the way we want. And a lot of people in the world don't. They don't have
yeah,
those privileges.
exactly.
We owe it to the others in the world to do better with our lives. Yeah.
100%. I agree with that so much. And I think you need to kind of get out of of your home bubble to see what's right in front of you, but also to not see it through the lens of taking it for granted and like, oh, this is just like what everyone lives. This is how everyone lives. And that works both ways. So I lived in New Zealand for just nearly 3 years, and that was somewhere that felt like my soul just like came to life, had had an amazing community of friends there. I lived on this beautiful paradise island, really small town vibe, and everybody there just like some of the people I met and the conversations I'd had would just open me up to such different ways of living, and it made it okay. Like, a friend of mine was, a guy in and he just like he'd never really had a career because the way that his mind worked was as like work is doesn't come first. Like living and play and love and his family and enjoying life, that took precedent. And he was one of the healthiest, happiest people I've ever met because of that. But coming from my world, where it was like, if you're not going to get to Oxford University, then you're slacking. It was just like, and you kind of recalibrate then. And I think that's what's given me the confidence to dare to take a different path. And there's a pressure that comes with going against the grain. There's a pressure to succeed, and there's a pressure to like really make it work. And I've had to do a lot of mindset work and belief work to get me to the point I am now, where I can confidently be like, yeah, I'm a business owner and I'm running an international retreats and I'm speaking on podcasts and all that kind of thing. That doesn't happen overnight. That has been a journey of probably like 25 years, but especially in the last 2 or 3. And it just really strikes me when I come home and I speak to people like living a more traditional route, which I'm not knocking, but it's just that idea of like, they're so impressed by what I'm doing. And I'm like, honestly, babe, like if you go out your own way, there is nothing special about what I'm doing. There's nothing special about me. You just need to be in an environment, as I was in Bali, where everybody was working on their business online. Everybody was starting. I had this really cute moment where I sat in a cafe chatting to this girl, and we've been talking for like half an hour, and and you suddenly realize, I don't even know your name. It's one of those.
Mm.
And she was like, oh, add me on Instagram. It's Align with Alana. And I was like, I can venture with Verity. We just had this really
Aw.
funny, cute moment of being like, look at us being girls and starting our businesses online and loving alliteration because we're secretly a bit nerdy. Like, yeah, so good.
I think it goes to show just like how subconsciously capitalism and the definitions of success that are capitalistic centric can be
Mm,
ingrained in our minds, and being able to see other ways of life and meeting people who have taken unconventional approaches to success and just like seeing how happy they are, how fulfilled they are, gives us challenges our perspectives. Like what
yeah,
can we do to break the mold and find fulfillment that we could not have otherwise imagined given the structure of our society. And being able to, pay bills is a big aspect of success in
yeah.
the United States and the UK, but
Hmm.
there's so many different ways to go about having a fulfilling life and being able to have the funds to support it. We're not The only person limiting us is us at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so
I
cool that you were able to discover
couldn't agree
that and,
more.
like, that person resonated with you. Were there
Yeah.
any, like, major setbacks or difficulties, like, in your time of traveling solo? I mean, you've been doing it for 10 plus years, that really forced you to face yourself in a way that you couldn't have done otherwise?
That's a good question. I think the whole process of me, and this is what I coach women through, is learning to love yourself through travel. And I think some of the biggest lessons I've learned are that you're actually made of much tougher stuff than you realize. And when things do inevitably go wrong, because the image that's portrayed of travel on social media is very like, check out my highlights reel, me running down a beach and watching the sunset and seeing, going swimming with dolphins and all these incredible things that, yes, it's amazing you can do that. But it's actually like the 36-hour bus journeys through the Indian desert where you've got like low level Delhi belly and there's a religious pilgrimage on. So you've got like a family of 5 trying to take your seat. And it's those moments where you just kind of look around and go, oh my gosh, the world is so big. And yet so many people limit themselves to such a tiny corner of it. And I had a lot of experiences where you are just kind of humbled, I guess, by what it means to be human in certain situations. And like, I've lost 2 passports to various situations. So yeah, the first, like, I lost my passport. I had my bag stolen in Peru and it was in the middle of the desert. And I was 18 years old. I was 3 weeks into a 4-month trip. And I was just like, my goodness, like what am I going to do? I ran around this bus station screaming in Spanish, like, ¿Dónde está mi bolsa? Like some crazy, I'd never seen that side to myself. It was really, I'm not an angry kind of person, put it that way. Or if I do, I like, internalize it. So it was really kind of like weirdly liberating to be running around like being the crazy girl. And obviously at the time it was very stressful, like incredibly stressful. I got on the bus and I had to sit there for 12 hours and call my mum off. I was with my friend at the time, so luckily had like some support there. Call my mum. It was like 2 a.m. back home in the UK, and just be like, Mum, I've lost everything, and sob down the phone to her. And bless her, she was very like, stayed calm. Okay, this is what we need to do, and just kind of like talk me through it. And anyway, 12 hours later, I get to this hostel, and at reception, they're like, yeah, to check in, you need your passport. And I was just like, again, like broke down because I'd had like all my money, all my cards, my phone, like digital camera, like, you have your like real valuable bag when you're traveling, like all your clothes and stuff, fine. But like I had letters from my friends I hadn't even opened yet, like my journal, everything I loved was in this bag. And it's when he asked me, like, okay, I need your passport. And I again burst into tears. He gave me the number of the local embassy and I called it, and I was expecting to have to explain in like my broken or my schoolgirl Spanish what had happened. And the guy answers the phone and he's like, "Hello, it's Francis here. How may I be of service?" And he was just like the most like British knight in shining armor. Like, he literally sounded like a character on Downton Abbey. And I was just like, I've lost everything. And he sorted it all out. Like, I went to visit him in his office and it all came together. But what really, that biggest lesson of that was just like, as long as you're physically okay and you're safe and your health and, it's all fine. Like, there's always a way out. And in that time, I relied on the generosity of strangers to like basically like wire them money and then they'd take cash out for me, or, you have to be resourceful in that way because you have no other choice. But then it comes back around because 10 years later in Bali, a Dutch couple in my hostel were like, all our cards aren't working. Do you mind if we send you some money? And they were so sheepish about it and so scared to ask. And I was like, oh my God, 100%. This is really like, this is a full circle moment paying it forward.
Yeah.
So, oh yeah, after losing my bag, I just remember walking around feeling so liberated because I had nothing else left to lose. And that in itself was a massive learning because you're like, okay, back to basics. This is how people traveled 30 years ago. I'm going to be okay. You kind of, realize you're made of tougher stuff, which is liberating.
I love that. I think it's moments like that that show you just how strong you can really be. And every problem that you're facing has a solution as long as you're willing to seek that solution. And it's going to be hard. I mean, we glamorize travel on social media so much.
Yeah.
And we both started traveling before social media was really a thing like this. Like I started traveling years before Instagram even became into existence, So it's
They didn't
really in
even
the
have
last like
Wi-Fi. In some of the hostels
exactly.
I
I would
stayed
have
in,
to
there was no
memorize.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
Crazy.
exactly. And I didn't even have a smartphone for a long time, and I had to just like memorize the map and just go and try not to look so much like a tourist and just get
Yeah.
lost and be okay with getting lost, or be okay with things getting stolen, or be okay with me not feeling safe all the time, especially as a young woman traveling alone. It's challenging and it does feel like a scary world sometimes. And cultures see women differently. So I
Hugely.
think it comes with inherent challenges, and we don't necessarily advertise those challenges. But every person who goes on a solo trip expect to have at least one problem pop up at some
Oh,
point in your
if
trip
if
that
not
you have to
so many
solve.
more. Or just
Exactly, exactly.
and things you're not expecting either. So, yeah, obviously depending where you travel. Like when I spent some time in India and being a pale-skinned, blue-eyed blonde girl, I was like this exotic beauty out there. It was mental, but it was so overwhelming. First it was kind of like funny, and then you have people filming you. You have queues of people queuing up to take your photo. I was at the Taj Mahal and I remember turning around and there was like a queue of 10 people waiting to just like have their photo taken with me. And I'm like, guys, I'm not that interesting. Really? Like Taj Mahal over there, like one of the seventh wonders of the world. Me, not gonna cut it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and you are just kind of confronted with your differentness, which can be very unsettling, and especially when you are on your own. I definitely would recommend there are easier routes like Southeast Asia, for example, Indonesia, the Philippines, countries or areas of the world that are just so used to backpackers and so used to tourists that you kind of, you blend in a bit more. But you
yeah.
also do just have to accept that you're in other people's space and sometimes you're special.
Yeah. Yeah. And also like learning how their culture operates and even learning some words in their language can really empower
100%.
you to blend in a little bit more and show them that
Mm,
you are being respectful of their culture. And respect goes both ways. When you go visit somebody else's culture, you have to conform to their way of life and not
mhm.
expect it to be the other way around. Yeah, it does suck though. I mean, I've been in the similar situation where I've had my pictures taken in Asia, actually,
Yeah.
because how many times do they get to meet like a pale Middle Eastern woman with curly hair.
Right.
They're like fascinated by people who don't look like themselves. And we just kind of have to accept that novelty is going to look different for different people. And, that's
100%.
just what's interesting to them. And chances are they've never left their town or their country. So they
Yeah.
don't really have much of a worldview. And
Hmm.
we have to be willing to accept that. We're so privileged to be able to go abroad.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
Yeah.
that's
Thank
kind
you
of
for
like the
sharing the
price you
difficulties,
pay, if you
though.
like. Well, yeah, I think you also like something I coach my clients through is you also need to stay like assert yourself in situations and be okay with saying no. And you don't need to be rude about it, but you also, if it's never worth you becoming very uncomfortable or unsafe ever. And I think myself growing up, as I know a lot of women my age are, massive people pleasers. So, like, oh yeah, sure, I'll just stand here and smile politely whilst, and 10 minutes later, like, no, I'm done now. But I'm not going to there's a way of doing it where you can assert yourself and speak be honest and upfront, but in a way that's not antagonistic or confrontational. And sometimes you do just have to be a bit rude or at least firm.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the only person that's protecting you is you when you're abroad. So you
Yeah.
have to stand up for yourself. Don't let people
Hmm.
walk all over you. Don't let people rob you or ask you to spend more money just because you're a tourist. Fight back a little bit and be respectful and feel empowered in the process that you are able to negotiate for the cost
Yeah,
of something or stand your ground or walk away from that situation that didn't feel right for you. So, and we come back home feeling much more confident in our abilities and in ourselves because of those experiences. Like you come back just not
definitely.
even realizing what lessons you carried with you. The lessons
Yeah,
don't come into fruition until after you've returned home. You don't really realize what you've learned.
that is so
Yeah.
true. And I think you become more okay with standing out and more okay with being noticed as well. I think like from being such a like deeply self-conscious teenager with like such low self-worth to then being in a situation where actually like I'm getting photographed like I'm Princess Di or something, like it's whoa, okay, this level of attention is insane. Then now, like years later, I always notice like when after living in New Zealand where there's a very open culture, and Australia as well, like everyone, it's normal to chat to each other. Europe is a great example. Like I was in Spain a few months ago and I was just waiting to pay for my car parking ticket. And this woman just turns to me in the queue and just starts chatting away like so casually. And I think it's a bit of a shame that in the UK we've kind of lost that ease with strangers and with people that we don't know. And I'm determined to bring that back, at least in the in the bubbles that I walk in, because quite often like people are people are shy to make the first move and to initiate a conversation. But in the world, like the world that we're living in at the moment, we are all suffering from such a problem of disconnection, and people are losing the ability to relate to one another and to socialize and to connect with other humans massively. And there's just like the skills aren't being practiced. Even going to the supermarket, and you don't need to talk to a human now to go and get your stuff, pay and leave. That's would have been absolutely mental to our grandparents. And
Yeah.
it's those micro interactions that are actually really important, and that you travel you're forced to because you're like the hopeless lost tourist who needs to ask for help actually, because I don't know what bus stop I'm leaving from, and if I miss that bus, then I'm in trouble.
Exactly. It's becoming a lost art form to be able to understand and know your neighbors and
Mm.
just be able to pick up little conversations here and there. At least in California and Los Angeles, if a random stranger starts talking to me, my immediate assumption is I'm unsafe. Like, why is this
Yeah.
person interacting with me? But I realized like that's humanity. We're all sharing this planet. We might as well
Mm.
all try to get to know each other a little bit and at least treat each other cordially and not assume the worst of each other.
Exactly.
I think
Yeah,
it's a
it's like
really good lesson.
we immediately assume people are a threat, or just not necessarily a threat, but we're immediately wary. Whereas I think in other cultures that just is not the case at all. And that's really refreshing to see. So particularly after like a good few years living outside of the UK, when I come home now, I'm like walking around, like if I go walking the dog or something like that, I'm literally there like, morning. how are you? Hi. Like purposefully trying to break the barrier. Um, and it's just made me enjoy life so much more. Like even there's a Zumba class that I love going to at my local like gym and pool and stuff. And it's like all walks of life go to this gym Zumba class. And you get all the, the women who are like hiding at the back and feeling very self-conscious and kind of like doing the micro movements. And then I used to be that woman and I fully like my heart and soul like empathize with her so deeply. But now I'm front and center, making an absolute idiot out of myself. I'm okay with getting it wrong because I know that my self-worth isn't tied to my Zumba ability, funnily enough. But my self-worth isn't tied to
Exactly.
any ability that or anything that I do. It's just innate. And yeah, of course there are days when I'm like, oh, okay, life just seems a bit hard today. And I don't and I lose that. I lose that connection with my value that actually I am enough just as I am. I don't need to earn more money. I don't need to be more productive. I don't need to be XYZ. Like I'm enough as I am. And that I think has been the biggest lesson that travel has given me and the gift that it is of actually just learning to love yourself and not in an arrogant way.
I love that. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's true self-respect, true self-love, and it's not dependent on anything external. It's an innate belief that you deserve
Mm.
to live life to its fullest capacity, and you're going to do everything in your power to make sure that comes true and to help others discover themselves too, which I would
Yeah.
love to talk a little bit about your business. You have a
Mm.
retreat coming up, going to Bali. If somebody
Yeah.
wanted to get in contact with you and get
Hmm.
coaching from you or join this retreat, how would they go about it?
This I'm so excited that this is coming to light because this retreat is honestly something so exciting, and I don't think anyone else is doing this quite in the way that we're doing it. So the idea is that solo travel is really daunting. If you've never done it before, the fear of the unknown is just so much to deal with. And the way our brains work, in that as soon as our brain is unable to predict what's going to happen, it's just immediately telling you to avoid it. It's risky, no go zone. And that's something that you're forced to just kind of like dive in and roll with it or not. And lots of women, I think that's the deepest fear that puts them off traveling. So the idea with the retreat is that it's a solo travel inspired retreat. So there are going to be solo travel challenges, such as getting yourself out there, navigating your way around the island. We're going to be spending 10 days in Bali as a group. And within that time, I'm going to be challenging the women to go out and to have dinner by themselves and then come back to the villa afterwards and we'll talk about it. What did you find difficult? What surprised you? What was easier than you anticipated? All of these things to really just gently support them to expanding their comfort zone, because that's all travel really is. Like at the crux of it, it's expanding your comfort zone and learning to sit with yourself and form a better relationship with yourself. That's why I'm so passionate about helping more women to do that. Yeah, it's the 28th of November to the 7th of December this year. We've already sold out about 50% of the spots, which is awesome. So we've got women coming from New Zealand and Australia and the UK at the moment. And it's just going to be such a unique experience of deep transformation where we're combining confidence coaching and workshops and yoga and breath work and ecstatic dance and all of these ways to like push yourself out of your comfort zone, but with the safety and support and fun of a girls' trip setting. So it's like semi solo.
Wow, what an amazing opportunity. I wish I had opportunities like that when I was starting to get into solo
Right?
travel, because those are all hard lessons I had to learn on my own: how to go eat alone at a restaurant, how to go to a movie theater and concert alone, how to, just get on the bus alone and
Yeah.
feel safe to do it. And even more so, like facing my thoughts alone
Yeah.
and hearing the intrusive thoughts that go through my brain. So
Oh
to
my
have like
gosh.
a support system like that of other like-minded women, that's invaluable. I'm really, really
Mm.
excited to hear how that journey goes for those of who signed up to be part of your retreat.
Yeah, it's gonna be very unlike anything else, I think. I think there's such a strength and magic that happens when you're growing together as a group or when you have that shared vision of I'm gonna come home feeling more confident, more calm, more loving towards myself, and I'll have finally ticked off this massive bucket list adventure that I've been craving. And it's aimed at, it's aimed at women for any age, but particularly just if you're feeling a restlessness and just feeling a bit lost, like life was supposed to be a bit more beautiful than this, what's going on? And you're feeling that disconnect from yourself. Traveling is the best way to do that. But traveling in the support of a community and with expert coaching and guidance on hand, that's going to be, magic. I'm really looking forward to it. If you are interested, you can reach out to me on Instagram at venturewithverity. And I'm going to be running another one in Bali. So there's one the first week of December. I'll be running another one in Bali next year and another one in Sri Lanka as well, because I've never been to Sri Lanka and it's been on my bucket list for so long. And we're going to twin it with a surf camp. So it's going to be confidence coaching and learning how to surf.
Oh my
The dream.
gosh, talk about pushing your limits. I love it.
It was so funny. Like, I grew up obsessed. I always wanted to be Ivy from 90210. Obsessed. And I grew up in Royal Leamington Spa, which is like the tiniest town in the middle of England. It's like the furthest point from any coast or any sea. And surfing is actually really difficult. And I have
You get to live out your 90210 dreams.
Yeah, finally.
And then you can actually come to Beverly Hills and put it to the test after.
100%.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your testimony and how powerful travel has been for you. And I'm really grateful that there's women like you out there who are helping to create structure and guidance for women who can so truly benefit from these services and discover themselves in ways that you can't do in the comfort of your own home and your own backyards.
I mean, your tagline of like discovering your inner world through exploring your outer world is just beautiful. And it's such an important message. And I think, especially for young people, there's so much uncertainty in the world at the moment. And a lot of people are feeling that lack of purpose and trying to fit themselves into a version or a blueprint of success that actually isn't working anymore. And I just think if you have the option, and I know like travel is a massive privilege, it can really change your life trajectory and improve it and change it for the better. And, there are things like I've used Workaway before. I've gone and done volunteering projects where you don't have to spend a lot of money to get somewhere and to be part of something greater than yourself. And I think that's a really important lesson as well, because if there was any advice for somebody that wanted to start their healing journey with travel, I think my first piece would just be to set an intention for the trip. So what do you want to get out of it? What is your soul in need of? What is the outcome that you want to achieve? And lots of people don't think about travel as a tool or a vessel for healing or growth. And so if you're feeling a bit lost and a bit disconnected, then go to Costa Rica and work in the rainforest with a cool bunch of people for 4 weeks. You'll come back different. I've never done that. That sounds great. But I know there are so many projects that are volunteer based, and especially in parts of the world where it's cheaper to live anywhere. Set the intention and expand your horizons. Google volunteering and Workaway or World Packers, and you find places you can stay for free and you exchange your time and in exchange for food and accommodation. Win-win.
At Travel Through Trauma, we actually built a self-development travel journal that it structured exactly like you said. You start with your intention going into the trip, because keeping that in mind just helps it become more clear as you navigate the next few weeks or months in a new environment. And you never know when you're going to have that light bulb moment. But knowing what answer you're trying to seek or what question you're trying to answer is already setting you up for success, just because you understand like what is that cognitive dissonance that's eating you up at this stage of your life, and what can you learn to be able to mend that better. So really love that we have similar principles. Thank you so much, Verity, for your time, though. I'm so excited for people to discover your work and hopefully expand every year, be able to get bigger and bigger.